Hello and welcome to Mr. Clark After Dark, everyone. My name is Lucas Clark and I am a certified educator with Alberta Education and the Alberta Teachers Association. All conversations and interactions exchanged is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. In no way does the content discussed intend to be in violation of the ATA Code of Conduct or meant to target any individual student, teacher, or to belittle or demean the profession in any way. If you have something that you would like me to discuss or have a story of your own to share, please reach out at lucasrdclark97@gmail.com. You can also send a direct message to me on Instagram at Mr. Clark After Dark. Hope you enjoy the show, and please do not forget to subscribe. And now, on to the show. Hope you all enjoy. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of the show with Chris Organ. On this part of the podcast, we discuss instilling the value of education and the love of learning in your students, the purpose of social studies, the teacher shortage, his initial stint as an administrator at only 28, and the challenges associated with it, not liking being called a boss, going back to the classroom after being an admin and reflecting on his admin experience, how he, quote unquote, loves his mother and her appreciation of titles and title chasing, the emptiness of title chasing, the jump from VP to principal, the skills necessary to be a successful administrator, adjusting to being a leader of adults, not feeling like you need to be the expert in everything, avoiding the negativity in teaching and the gossiping that follows you, and much more. Thank you guys all for listening. Really do appreciate it and hope you enjoy the show.
And a lot of kids might not give a rat's.
Well, and honestly, and that's kind of the other battle that I always think about is how do you instill the value of education to these kids, and how do you instill those growth mindset values? Because I always find there's a lot of students who would say, you know what, 70, that's cool. They're not really interested in.
They haven't had the love of learning yet.
Yes, and so I guess because I know it's obviously there's curriculum, there's other things, but it's how do you just root that up to say, how do you instill a love of learning or an appreciation of learning even?
That's a big question that I probably will not have the answer to.
No, and even just spitballing, because again, I find that's what it all boils down to.
Yeah.
Everything when it comes to what you do in your classroom, if you're doing all the, you don't really have that foundation of the appreciation and the idea that it's so, a question for you, for social, because I always ask, what is the purpose of social studies?
Mm-hmm.
So what would you respond to that?
There's a big difference. You've asked me the purpose of history is not to repeat it. Same question.
Yeah, but you say it's citizenship. Right?
Yeah.
I feel there's always some cliche answers, but how do you?
You are part of a community.
Yeah.
Social studies is not history class. Social studies is the study of society.
Yeah.
That's social studies.
Yeah.
You are part of society. So you are learning social studies, hopefully, or you're teaching it hopefully with the goal of creating productive citizens who are aware, who are critical thinkers.
And have the capacity to inform themselves.
Yep.
That's kind of the...
Exactly. Yeah. And understand the culture of the country, where we're going, why the world, and how they can contribute. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
Because we want everybody...
I always find they think, I'll never be able to contribute. And I'm what do you mean? But
disenfranchised.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, you think about it, you're 16 years old or you're 17 years old in your classes. They can't vote yet.
Yep.
Some of them don't drive yet. Some are very excited to drive. Yep. My 15-year-old son. Some very excited to drive. But in terms of empowerment, they don't see it outside their walls unless you're doing charity work or nationally yet.
That's
but
fair.
They could start seeing a micro version in the school, in their community. I see a lot of kids. We were at the Hoop Heroes is a program that Carla Power runs with Frank Power for special kids with different abilities in basketball. There are adults there helping out. Do you want to see a lot of high school kids who are volunteering their time?
Yeah.
Owen's one of them, but there's also Alana was there last week. I'm going to say her last name because it's a podcast, but Alana, kid here, was here, was there. Then I saw another student named Riley who was there. These are kids who are, they're within their circle of concern. I can change this. I can make the world a better place by doing this.
Finding a place to make the difference. That's
Right.
actually, yeah, because I'm wondering if you could almost channel like community engagement projects where they actually
100%.
can feel themselves producing a change. Because I think, well, you need to give them some agency that's not just, I need to do this performance assessment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, last year at our school, under the work of Mr. Eufing, he guided his class with to get a skate park built in our school neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
That's a $450,000, maybe $500,000 project.
Yeah.
Grade 6 social studies, for those who are listening in Alberta, is about local, provincial, and federal government. So the kids did a service project for the community, not for the school, for the community, and they presented to city council. They did presentations and then they had met with the financial wing of the city. And then there was a community engagement project in the parking lot. The kids came by for that. And so we're going to get a skate park, I believe, in the Gregoire neighborhood. Cool. Yeah. But the kids did that. Mr. Eufing empowered the kids, right? Now the kids will never forget that they have a say.
Well, it's almost, you need to set it up that you give them the direction, not the assignment. Like you give them the lane, like the open-ended go for it kind of thing, like a problem to solve themselves.
That's right.
Not just give me this timeline. That's
your essential question, your enduring question. You mentioned before, you tried to think of that. This needs to, and then you have, what do you want to know? And then at the end is, why are we doing this?
Yeah.
Right? The worst thing, you should always have the answer to why. Why are we learning this? If you don't know how to answer that as a teacher, train yourself to get that answer because it'll be done.
Because even in 20-1, because I always find I always start with my through-line questions and I'll talk about it. So in 20-1, it's how do we maintain our differences but live well together, and live well together. That's still like a little cliche in a sense, but really it is the root of most of our conflict. It's like we don't know as a society really, like when we get to these ultra-nationalist points, it's like, what is it that drives us to make these decisions?
There's I had somebody correct me years ago. I kept on preaching tolerance, right? In a positive way.
Yeah.
Well, tolerance is a power dynamic.
Yeah.
I'm going to tolerate
you. Yeah. So it's like,
that's
it's acceptance, not tolerance.
That's the majority over the minority dominance, right?
Yeah.
And you said the key word there. It's about acceptance.
Yeah.
Right? And acceptance does not mean that I have to agree with everything you do. Mm-hmm. But I accept your right to.
Yeah. Well, like instilling that civic value. And that's pretty much what the unit 1 of 20-1 is. But yeah, I guess that's kind of been my social lane. So you were an admin at 28.
Yeah.
What was that? So how long were you teaching for? What did you teach initially?
Initially, that's what I taught Lackbridge for a year, junior high. And then I went to Greeley Road Junior High for 2 years. And then I went to Beacon Hill for 2 years, maybe 2.5 years.
Did you find moving around a lot like that was like hard? So
no.
like, that's 3 schools in 5 years. Did you like that?
Well, Lackbridge was its own thing.
Yes.
Greeley Road was a situation where I taught junior high for 2 years, liked the kids.
Yep.
Wanted to change to grade 6. This is back in the day when we were able to move.
What do you mean by able to move?
Like there was, postings come out like now. I haven't looked for a while to move schools or anything like that. So back then it'd be like a lot of postings. We used to have a 1/3 turnover back in the early 2000s.
What do you mean by 1/3 turnover? Like 1 out of 3 teachers?
33% of our staff would leave.
Every year?
Yeah. We had no COLA back then. Right? No cost of living allowance.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
No
COLA.
And so it's no COLA. It's a cost of living allowance. And it was everybody came here with a 2-year plan or a 3-year plan.
Yeah.
And so they come in and people were tired. There's a lot of turnover. Yeah. So there's lots of openings up. And I want to go to Beacon Hill and spent 2 years there teaching grade 6. And then the VP had a medical issue. Mm-hmm. And
so were you in a master's at all at this point, or
back then it was different? It wasn't as much online learning available. Okay. So I was not in my master's.
Okay.
I was not tapped on the shoulder, but I was asked if I'd be interested in applying. There's a big difference. At 28, you're like, oh my God, I'm from back east. You don't get a VP job until you're like,
you don't get a teaching 40, job until you're 28, or even if not
until
more.
You're 40, you're a VP or whatever. And I was like, absolutely, I'll apply.
Yeah.
It was a temporary contract. And then that lasted for a year and a half. It was supposed to be 3 months, lasted for a year and a half at Beacon Hill. Loved it.
So
started my master's.
What was the change like, and what did you love about it that was different? Was it
First
did you love it more than, maybe not more than teaching, but did you kind of like that role more? Or?
No.
Okay.
I miss the classroom every day.
Okay.
I love teaching.
Yeah.
And I love being in the classroom with those kids because you get more rooted to the relationships. You get, there's nothing better. My favorite being a principal is coaching staff and helping kids out. There's nothing better though when you have a classroom, you have a family environment, and you're in the curriculum, and I'm helping that kid who's struggling, academically, or the kid who's having social issues. We're working together, right? Those relationships are strong. So I don't like it better. It was just a matter of timing. Do you want to do it? I loved that school very much. It was probably, the friendships I made at Beacon Hill School back then were huge.
Mm-hmm. The what at Beacon Hill?
The friendships of the staff and everything.
Okay.
Was huge.
Yeah.
Even to the point where I go to restaurants today, and if I have a former parent from a kid I taught back then, sometimes a free drink comes by my table.
Okay.
I have to look around where it came from.
Yeah.
But now those kids are like 29 or 28, so it's a little different.
Yeah.
But the biggest challenge from being a class teacher to a VP back then was, you mentioned it before, you called it imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
So I was definitely in imposter syndrome state. I'm like, so I act like how I think a VP should act, which is what everybody does.
Yeah.
But all you had to remember was that everybody's there for the betterment of the kids. Nobody's there for any other reason than that. Yeah. Yes, we have other issues in our lives, but that's mainly why we came to teach. And my role is to help the teachers teach and help the kids learn. Mm-hmm. And so you look at it from a service perspective, right? I have a teacher right now, or a former teacher in my school, now a different school. He used to call me boss, and she did because she knew it bugged me. Because I hated that word boss. Yeah. I'm not your boss. Actually ATA describes as the first amount of equals as administrator. Okay. But I'm not your boss, right? I mean, I'm your coach, I'm your confidant. I'll help you with your instruction, but I'm not your boss. But yeah, one of the best things that happened at Beacon Hill, though, my first year and a half as an administrator was, there was a teacher I looked very, very high up to at the time, and I still do. She wouldn't mind saying that, Janet Forshner. She teaches at Comp right now. Yeah. I was, 5 years of teaching in a VP. Yeah. And she knew her stuff. I was like, oh man, what am I doing being a VP at this age? And I have these teachers and I had Janice Cox, and I had Shelley Kellington, and I had all these teachers who have been teaching for years. Yeah. And I'm like, huh. I'm a little nervous. And then so the medical part ended. Yep. And when I stopped being a VP, went back to the class, one of them came to me and said, Jan Forge said, I wasn't sure about you in this role. And I was like, that's fair. You did a pretty good job. I was like, that is the biggest praise. Yeah. Because it's just like the slightest comment. Yeah. She knew, because I respect her opinion so much. Yeah. And actually, I had a chance to stay in administration, and I didn't. Okay. I went back to the classroom because I was only teaching for 5 years. I didn't spend my undergrad and my second undergrad for my BED to be teaching for 5 years and then being an officer the rest of my life. So I went back to the classroom. I went to Westview, where Mary Aristopoulos and Garrett Tabay, and I did phys ed in grade 4. Did that for about a year and a half. And there was a need for a grade 6 teacher in the school, and where I taught a lot of my career in grade 6. I went back to the classroom. So why grade 6? Why was that like? That year was a need. There was this need because so many medical leaves and all that stuff. Yeah. There's a need. Plus, I had taught it before, and with the PATs being a high stakes year, fair enough. Some experience. Yeah. I like grade 4, 5, 6. Yeah. 7, 8. It's awesome. I just like that age group. Everybody, they're a little weird and a little wacky, and they're a little quirky. Yeah. But they don't know who they are yet. I know. I find it almost a little sad because there's a certain way that in high school it's almost your kids who are your more prone to misbehavior. They kind of just shut down. They're a bit more quiet. They might just go on their phone rather than act out. But it's almost their quirkiness dilutes, and it's almost a little unfortunate because it's kind of like you said, the play-based ECDP kids. They're hugging, having fun, and just want to play. That kind of dies out. Yeah, and I don't know why that dies out so much. If it's like an insecurity thing or like they've been told to get very serious, right? This is serious, and then if they've had nothing but mediocrity in the past in terms of their own success, or they haven't had success. And by the success is not marks.
Yeah.
Success is growth.
Yeah.
Right? They might be disheartened, disenfranchised. And so for those kids, that's an avoidance tactic. Go to myself.
Yeah.
I may have, been a behavior when I was younger and I got in trouble, and well, I'm not going to get in trouble anymore, but I don't know what to do in the class. So I'm going to go on my phone and not cause too much trouble.
Yeah.
But junior high kids are awesome. I think they're hilarious.
Yeah.
They come in, some of them are just
grade 7. Wild.
The first day of grade 7 is the best day of the year,
Yeah.
You can't have a grade 7 teacher come in and say, okay, now you're junior high, so I expect this.
Yeah.
Well, it doesn't always work that way because kids have spent the last 7 years in elementary school and they expected this. So it's going to be a coaching moment for all the grade 7 year. But you want to see a kid's super nervous and all the emotions at once the first day of grade 7.
Yeah.
Right? When they have their lockers to figure out, they bought their brand new outfit. All of a sudden in grade 6 to grade 7, they've changed their total look because they're now in junior high and it's really important.
Yeah.
Or you have the kids who didn't have 6 to 4, they're going to make an impression for themselves right now.
Yeah.
Right? So they're still little teddy bears. Yeah. They're not, they have their moments. And by teddy bears, I mean I'm not go there hugging them. That'd be weird.
Yeah.
But they're not as tough as they think they are.
Yeah.
Right? And they haven't found themselves yet. So a lot of understanding. So grade 6 is kind of the same thing.
Yeah. Grade
6 is awesome, just where I was needed at that time.
Yeah.
And then came to McTavish.
Yeah.
After 3 years at Westview.
Mm-hmm.
So the kids I had in grade 4 at Westview, I had them in grade 4, grade 5, grade 6, grade 7 here, and grade 8.
Okay, wow.
So it was 5 years with the same. Well, by the time they came here, they got diluted across the other classrooms.
Yeah, right? Yeah. With the same overall batch.
Same kids. And then there was a mat leave.
Okay, so it's always kind of been like your opportunities have kind of just come up, right? That's kind of
but I think that also, how to say so, it's you've got to put yourself in the right situation if you want opportunities to come up.
Mm-hmm.
I used to say I was lucky. Lucky is not the right word. Lucky is pure chance.
Mm-hmm.
I've been fortunate.
Yeah,
there's a big difference. So I put myself in situations where I have done the groundwork to have the opportunity to apply for those jobs or to be looked at. So whether it was executive on ATAs or working with the Athletic Association of Alberta, or working with different leadership groups like the Superintendent's Advisory Board, or you put yourself in situations so that when you do have those opportunities to apply, you can apply with some hope and sincere confidence that you might have a chance at that job. And so I did administration here at McTavish for a year and a half.
Mm-hmm.
A year and a half? No, it was only 7 months.
Okay.
And at that point, this is my second round of being a VP. When I left Beacon Hill and chose not to go back to the classroom, I had a lot of people tell me you're never going to have a chance again to be VP. Nobody in authority told me that. There's people who didn't know, they're like, well, you're never going to have a chance again, Chris. I mean, you were a VP and now you're left behind to go to a classroom. Like, they're never going to look at you again. They have other people. I'm like, well, I want to be a better VP. Yeah. And how do you be a better VP? You get more classroom experience.
Well, if anything, going back to the classroom gives you more time to like reflect on your VP year as well. Yeah. Then you can kind of see, okay, when and if I do, how do I do this differently?
Right. Yeah. And then the thing I was always afraid of was having not many years experience as a teacher and then spend the rest of my life in administration and not having this is my own personal view, and not having the experience to help support teachers when they have in a teaching situation. That's an issue. So I was happy to have a chance again at McTavish. I worked with Scott Barr. It was phenomenal. Ups and downs, and James Hayward, who was also phenomenal. Yeah. It was ups and downs and sideways. I mean, there was days I was like, oh my God. But you figure it out. And then it was, CG. And I stayed in administration since then. So, and I went back. I've taught as I taught maybe the math class or but never a full home teacher again. Yeah. But that's a long-winded answer too.
No, that's great. So is principal kind of like end goal now? Is this kind of like where you think you'll see yourself for the next rest of your career?
I don't worry about those kind of end goals. Okay. Because I've never worried about title as end goals.
No, I guess.
No, but to be fair, because some people get I love my mother.
Yes.
Very much. She was a teacher forever. And she's very proud to say that her son is a principal.
Okay.
She's very proud to say her son was a vice principal.
Yeah.
She's very caught up in the,
yeah.
My boy is a principal. She's caught up in titles. Right?
Yes. Yeah.
So
yeah, title chasing is, I find it's an empty endeavor.
It's an empty endeavor for sure. I was division principal 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Before you came. It was a wonderful opportunity.
Yeah.
And I think everybody who knows me and knows that. So basically that role was coaching vice principals, which was good. Being part of the new principals meetings.
So what were those meetings kind of like? Like what would have been said at like a new principals meeting? So
I was a participant in that, so it was still so new. It was a weird situation, but how to deal with maybe you have staffing issues you never came across before, right? These meetings were not like meetings of there's a conflict. These meetings were meetings of how can we coach each other?
How do you prepare for what's ahead? That's kind of what I'm assuming,
right? Because the big jump from VP to principal is, well, first of all, there's a myth out there: the buck stops with you. There's always somebody above you to answer to, no matter how high you go. Even with the Minister of Education, there's somebody above you, right? And then it's a premier, and then there's a pact to the parents or the parent councils or whatever. That's a myth about the answering. You're never really the boss. You're just the guide. You're the steward. But the principal meetings themselves were fine. It was useful. It was nice to hear other peers were the same thing. So right now I'm a solo. I mean, my school technically there's one administrator. Me. It's a small school.
Okay.
I don't have a VP.
Okay.
So
interesting. Okay, I didn't know that.
To lean on other principals in those meetings is huge.
Yeah.
My other part was to coach vice principals. Just in terms of, how's your growth plan going? How is it going with, maybe you have an issue with a certain parent or community member who's had different views or whatever the case might be. How's that going around? That kind of stuff. The biggest part of my job was QP, and I would work on the management side of QP.
So that's like the union for EAs, custodians.
Yep. Anybody, custodians, EAs, numerous.
So any non-ATA staff, essentially.
Right. Generally speaking, we have some out of scope, but that's a different ball of wax. And so it was my job to interpret the collective agreement properly, answer their questions, work with Lynn Fleet. It was a lot of office work. Yeah. But it was a big title. It sounded cool. Division Principal of Human Resources and Administration.
That's great on the resume.
My mother loved that. And you know what? It was a very rewarding experience because I gained a lot of knowledge. Yeah. But just like my VP days, and I went back to the classroom. In May, the opportunity to come back to a school happened, and I jumped on that pretty fast.
Okay.
I was only a principal for a year.
Yes.
Then I was division principal. That was pretty quick.
Yeah.
And so I'm back in the principalship, and I'm much happier because I get to go back in there. Well, do I want to go?
Well, it seems like you kind of feed on the interactions too.
Yeah.
Like that's like, and I find most teachers are pretty social creatures. Like you might have some people who are like, again, I mean, I had some pretty dry history professors who were like, that was just their lane. They loved the subject matter. It's like, it's a job. I teach the subject. But I find most teachers, it's the informal conversations throughout the day that's kind of what keeps them or what drives them. Or I guess maybe energizes them is the better word. So what did you division principal, did you feel like you lost that imposter syndrome a little bit when you got there? Did it creep up a little bit? Or like now that you're coaching VP, that's kind of my I lost the imposter syndrome of being a principal, but I've definitely had the imposter syndrome of being, I had some wonderful coaches down there. Mary was amazing, Anna Lee was amazing. They were all amazing. Yeah. And they said I did a good job. Yeah. They were happy with the work I was doing. I had imposter syndrome in that role, but when I came back to being a principal, I had a lot more confidence. Okay.
In what I was doing.
Yeah.
But the original question though about title, where do I see myself? I don't worry about that. I worry about my skill development.
Yeah. So what kind of skills do you find are most valuable for the roles that you've been in? Like what do you classify as a skill? There's quote unquote hard skills and soft skills, right? Yeah. I think the idea of calling things like relationship building, listening skills or soft skills is kind of crazy because those are the most important skills. Yeah. A lot of the time. So the biggest thing I have to work on, because I am a talker, as you probably can tell. No, seriously, don't feel like I think you're talking too much. I'm really trying to ask you the questions here. That's all right.
No, but the biggest skill I have to work on is active listening. It's always been something where I'd put my brakes on my own mouth. They'll have that's a skill that is so important. The other skill that I'm growing and working on. So my school, our big focus is literacy. Like every school is focused on literacy. There's a new literacy skills developments being brought out, right? I used to be a Fountain Pinnell, figuring that out, how to use that program. It's we use that probably junior high as well. Now it's UFly. It's University of Florida Literacy Intervention. I have no idea how it works yet. I've done a lot of reading about it. Leah Semenov, my LAC, is absolutely phenomenal teaching me that. So I'm doing a lot of reading about that. And then I'm trying to watch videos on how to teach it. And I'm looking at the manual. And that's something that is not technically, you think, oh, that's a VP job. Well, it's a need in my school. So I have to learn how to do it because I'm going to take a group out. That's still growth. My learning on equity, right? So, or finding new ways to communicate with staff or with parents. These are all things you can grow on. And so, and understanding the Alberta Education Act.
So what do you mean? Because the VP role is not even defined, right? In the Education Act, isn't it just principal and like teacher are the only two defined ones? There are classifications.
Yeah, so it's defined, but you are held to the same standards as per. So there's the TQS, Teacher Quality Standard, and the LQS,
Leadership Quality Standard.
That's right. And VPs and principals are held to the same standards.
Okay.
Leadership Quality Standards. So what was your question again? No,
so I don't even. We were talking about like the VP role, how it's not really totally defined. I guess like the imposter syndrome of teaching VPs. No, that was kind of the lane. So like, does that kind of like, how do you coach? So let's just say tomorrow, because or maybe next year, because I'd be 28 next year, and I guess if I kind of subbed for 2 years and I've been teaching for 2 years, I'd be in a pretty similar place as you. Not saying this would ever happen, but it's like, Kate, we had this temporary VP role. How do I prepare for that? And like, what do I look for in a mentor to help me adjust to that? Because my main thing is, how did you kind of navigate being a leader of adults? Because obviously I'm grown pretty accustomed to being kind of like a quote unquote leader in my classroom to students. But how do you prepare for that? I know you can't really. I feel like it's kind of a university practicum teaching jump is kind of what I envision it.
It is.
How do you
feel like you're drowning for the first few months? Because it's all new again. I guess how to prepare. I don't know how to prepare you for that. I guess the best thing I can tell you is lessons I've learned.
But that's almost comforting though. It's almost comforting of like, you have to find a way to figure it out for yourself.
First of all, put yourself in the situation where you've had enough experience that you can genuinely help somebody in their first or second year or third year.
That's when I think about when you said you were 28. Like, I can't imagine taking on a role like that literally 2 years from now even.
So make sure you have experience. The second thing is, don't think that because you're administrator you have to be the expert in anything or everything. You cannot be the expert in everything. Am I the expert in my school on literacy? No. Am I working? I have Leah Semenov, who's phenomenal. She's my expert in literacy. And I have my Division 1 teachers who are excellent in literacy. But it's my role to be familiar and to be able to instruct some basics or have an idea what they're talking about, so that when I know where the roadmap is for a school, I can reference it, know it, and even instruct a little bit, but I don't have to be the pro. Am I the expert in my school, or let's say a large school? I'm responsible for finance. Does that mean I know every single accounting code that has to happen? No.
You're kind of the avenue for every problem to be solved. Like, you kind of know, it's like, if I ask you a question, okay, I can put you in contact with this person. Is that kind of your,
that's part of it. You still have some basic knowledge of what to do.
Yes.
But like, think of yourself as a coach. You're there to support and to coach. If you get that mindset and remove the situation of being the expert in everything, that's going to be a load off your shoulders. No coach in the NHL right now or in the NBA could beat any one of their players on the basketball court or on the ice. They are better players than the coaches are right now. Otherwise, the coach would be on the ice. The coach is the teacher, the guide, the encourager, the program setter. That's how you gotta look at yourself as. The other challenge as a VP is, yes, you're the VP, but the ultimate responsibility lies with the principal. So you can't do things that fly in the face of your principal's directives. You have to have strong communication with your principal.
So the word directive there comes up again.
Well,
there,
or not directives,
Yeah.
because I've never been directive as a VP. Mission statement,
Okay.
policies.
Yeah.
Because what will happen sometimes is that all of a sudden some staff will want to be your best friend as a VP, maybe because they've already worn out the other VP's ear, or they've already worn the principal's ear, and they want to get you on their side so they have a new voice to hear. But maybe it's something that they've already gone through 3 or 4 times that maybe it doesn't have a valid point. Often there's a valid point, but maybe they don't have a valid point.
So what do you mean? Like you're kind of looking at like
they want you to pick sides. They want another voice on the administrative team. So you got to be careful between, remember the friendly teacher and being your friend?
Yeah. Friendly admin versus
being your friend. Because your ultimate goal...
Because you're still kind of a coach. Like you're still in like an authoritative position.
Yeah. Right? A coach's goal is for this team, is for people to learn their skills. John Wooden.
Yeah.
John Wooden never worried. You know who John Wooden is?
He thinks.
Legendary basketball coach. Did the Pyramid of Success. If you ever watched Ted Lasso, they had a poster up there. They yelled. Okay, so I'm a big John Wooden fan.
Yeah.
John Wooden never worried about wins or losses. He never talked about it. He has the quote, success comes from the peace of mind that you did your best to become the best you're capable of becoming. That's how you look at your staff. Are they doing their best to become the best for their students? Or your school? Is your school doing their best? Mm-hmm. I'm not worried about the score. If I'm worried about the score, that's the end product.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. But it's coaching that moment. So, like the teacher who can be too friendly, but not, you got to be the friend. You got to be a friendly teacher, but not their friend.
Yeah. Same
thing as administration. I still have friends who are teachers, of course.
Yes.
But in that role, I have to put the school first, right? Which means I put the kids first.
But do you find that, have you even, because I almost find once you do become an administrator, there has to be a certain, maybe like you add a different filter, even kind of talking to your normal like old teacher buddies who are still teachers. Is any of that there?
There's things you cannot discuss.
Yeah.
Okay. Right? When I was a VP here, I had 2 or 3 friends who were here, and they might have some issues about a kid or about a certain curriculum directive or whatever. And I'd either be quiet or I wouldn't talk about it because it wasn't my place to talk about it.
So kind of learning when not to talk.
Yeah.
Is almost a bit more of a...
Yeah. But and my friends know what not to talk to me about.
Yeah.
Right? Because they know I can't comment. I just say, you guys know I can't say nothing about that.
Yeah.
I can't talk about that, right?
Yeah.
They might vent to me and that's fine.
Yeah.
But in terms of filter in the school, not really.
Okay.
I mean, I don't do very well at filtering, generally speaking. So it'd be kind of hard for me to actually learn a filter, but it's just common sense of principles. Yeah. I respect your job as a teacher. I respect the parents and I respect the students.
Yeah.
You don't talk about each other behind each other's backs or whatever it is. And people never ask about that, never do it. But, respect those who are not present. Okay.
What do you mean?
So, let's say, Lucas, you had a problem with me. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're team teachers. We teach grade 6 at school, Fairyland. I don't care.
Okay.
Cotton Candy Land. Okay, Cotton Candy Land. We teach at school. We teach grade 6 at Cotton Candy Land. We're team teachers. You do not like, let's say, hypothetical, how noisy my classroom is. Fair enough, right? And it might be a legitimate point. Might not be. Maybe I do activity-based learning. It's not actually allows you to think it is. Maybe you're just. Maybe there's other issues where you're like, oh, I wish I could teach like that, or maybe you're thinking, oh, he's not learning because they're doing so many activities. I'd be pretty upset if you went to the grade 5 teacher and said, Chris has got to keep that classroom down. I'm not even there to defend myself. So you got to respect those who are not present. Now, what you should do
I see what you're saying.
is come to me and say, Chris, your classroom's low. I'm like, oh man, is it? I didn't know. Okay, so
because you might not actually realize.
I might not realize it. Maybe I'm used to it. Maybe it's how I teach.
Yeah.
It's the same thing when talking with community groups. You don't, you won't hear me talk negatively or try not to talk negatively about anybody because they're not here to be.
Well, and it's also the idea that just because a class is loud doesn't mean they're not learning.
Yeah.
That's like, because you might be doing activities that requires like a lot of discussion. Now, obviously some things can go off track, but that's such a traditional sense of understanding what learning is.
Yeah. And it's, but also there's times where when quiet learning has to happen.
100, yeah, totally.
But back to your point about about respecting those who aren't there. You want to shoot yourself in the foot and give yourself a bad reputation and just gossip. If you want to end your reputation and blow your trust out of the water, then gossip. Because it always gets out anyway. Yep. And you've lost your trust and your integrity. Yeah. And no matter if you're a teacher going to VP or a VP going to principal, it will not matter. Yeah. It'll be over. The people who you rubbed the wrong way or you heard whatever, that will always stick. But I've also taught the people who I'm gossiping to that it's permissible. And now they don't trust me either. Yeah. Because if I talked about XYZ person, I might also talk about them who's ABC later on. They may not know that. So you got to be very careful. Yeah. All right. And you think that's like prevalent? No. I don't think it is. I think our staff are really good about that. Yeah, I think so too. I think teachers in general have like a common understanding. We have a code of conduct and all that stuff. Yeah. I think it's actually really good. I just think that I have seen once or twice. I mean, it's been 20 years of teaching. Yeah. And I have seen the negative effects of it. Yeah. It's not going to go well. Mm-hmm. And all our teachers are really good. Like, I love our PLFs. I love the fact that our staff work together. Yeah. There's camaraderie. Yes. Nobody wants to see anybody sink. I know it's such an individualistic job, but like you need to find a way to like find your comrades or like find your group that actually you can bounce ideas off of and have those conversations and those good questions. But I was going to ask, because like you obviously 2-teacher household with your family, how, and again, both in pretty intense gigs, like obviously your wife is a learning assistance coordinator, and then you're obviously in admin as well. Yep. So how, if at all, do you manage a work-life balance? And so the auto smirk there. This is the question I was waiting for. Yeah. So as a family, you can't go to work in 2 different schools and then not come back and not talk about work. Yeah, because you talk about your day no matter what you kind of work in. That's right. But it's the limitation of how much you talk about your work. Yeah. Right? And the work we talk about are maybe like, how's your day? Oh, it's good. Oh, school was crazy. Or, hey, I had this great experience. Those are good. But they can't be everything because all of a sudden your house becomes a staff room. And then you don't get the break, right? Yeah. So we kind of like, you talk about time I get home, maybe like 15 minutes about how your day was. Yeah. Generalities always, because you never know what's going to come across. So generalities and that. Work-life balance. This is a nose scratcher. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, I think. Yeah, go for it. I think work-life balance is a myth. Mm-hmm. Or at least it has been tweaked or misconceptualized. I believe in healthy mental health. I mean, mental health. I believe in making time for your family and your priorities outside of school. And I believe honoring your priorities outside of school with those inside of school as your duties as a teacher. Because if you're no good to anybody if you're burnt out. Yeah. What I don't believe in is this idea that you're a superhero, where you put the cape on when you come into school, and at 8 o'clock, you can leave at when the bell rings 3:30 and go home. And by segmenting your life into school and home by the hour, gives you work-life balance, because it doesn't. Yeah. What you have, you're going to find you have, is imbalance. I had a teacher before who was new and did the exact thing I did when I was a first-year teacher. Yeah. Okay, I get there about half an hour early, leave half an hour late, and I'm good. Well, the work wasn't getting done for the preparation the next day. Yeah. And so what was happening was he'd come to school unprepared sometimes. Yeah. Stressed out all day because he was unprepared. Yeah. Was not ready for the class. so stressed out that he would go home closely after the bell because he's just stressed out. Too burnt out to plan the night before. Just wants to recuperate.
It's like a constant
come back in today
too.
But he mentioned me, I'm trying to maintain my work-life balance. I'm like, no, what you have is a scheduling issue.
Yeah.
That's not work-life balance. Balance is harmony. And right now, are you in harmony?
Yeah.
And the answer is no. Okay. So what can we do to get you back in harmony?
Harmony's a good word.
Yeah. Harmony. Because you can't have, when I go home, I'm not the principal of Glee Road School. I'm still the principal of Glee Road School.
Yeah.
Right? No matter who I am in the community, I'm the principal of Glee Road School. When I go to school, it's not like I'm not dad anymore. Yeah. I'm still dad and a husband and all those things. It's part of who I am. It's not two separate universes. Yeah. So we worked on how can we budget your timing for planning? And that's the first one we did.
Yeah.
All right. And then when you get the planning done, and it's first year teacher. I don't say you have to have like the whole month planned out. Yes, you have your year-long plans, and I want you to have unit plans eventually. But really, if you're 2 or 3 classes ahead in your first year teaching, you're doing okay.
Yeah.
Right? Are you set for the next 3 days? What are you going to do? What are you going to teach? What do you have your materials ready? So then when he came in the morning, so we got to stay later, stayed about 4:30. Our school's really dismissal, so that's a good chunk of time.
Yeah.
And by the way, this is not assignable time.
Yeah.
We're a profession.
Yeah.
Right? That's the thing. We're not a trade. We're a profession. So there's assignable time, which is part of the contract. Yeah. But you still have the obligation to do your job properly.
Yes.
So he would stay later, plan, miracles happen. The next morning, he feels less stress. And the time he spent at home after 4:30, he didn't have this monster on his back, stressed about what he's going to do the next day. So the time he spent in school was longer, but the actual quality of his day time was better. So he found harmony.
Yeah.
Right? So he got home at 5. Okay. Well, your first year teacher, by the way. First year teachers are going to work a little more planning to do. It's a lot more work. I'm sorry, it is.
Well, you're also learning everything.
Yeah, that's life.
Yeah.
It's still hard to be a 10-year teacher or a 20-year teacher, but that first year is something special.
Yeah.
But when he went home, he could focus on what he wanted to do, whether it was the walks or his pets or TV show. There was no guilt associated with what he did at nighttime because he was prepared for the next day.
Yeah.
Comes in the next morning, he can breathe. You can have your coffee. You're not wondering what's going to happen. You're going to get those emails, my son has this issue with that kid or XYZ, or my daughter's having this issue, or we're going to be out of town, or principal sends you an annoying email, there's no subs today, and so you're going to be those things are going to happen.
Yeah.
Gym's canceled because we're short on TOCs or whatever have you. But he found harmony, a little more harmony in the classroom. And then...
Well, you're just more at ease. Anyway, if you're more at ease in general as a person, your class is going to be more at ease. Because they're going to feed off whatever you're mirroring to them.
Exactly. Right? So what's happening is now you are putting more hours in at work. Okay. But the hours of work are being more productive. So you feel better. When you go home, you are planned for the next day, so your home time is better. And he would agree that maybe he was confused with work-life balance being, I go to work from the time I do, we're early start school, so our staff either at 7:45 in the morning, we start at 8, and I don't want you leaving with the kids at the bell, so please don't leave anything past 3.
Yeah.
We're at 2:40. If you have to leave, you have to leave because medical appointments. I get that.
Yeah.
But he was sticking to those times.
Yeah.
But he wasn't finding harmony.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing about teacher burnout, because I see it's on our questions later on, is not the idea of work-life balance. The biggest predictor of teacher burnout is efficacy. If a teacher feels, and this is all the research shows, I have my notes on me right now.
Yeah.
But the research shows that if teachers feel they are effective in their classroom, that they're being heard, and that they're finding success with their students, the burnout rates are a lot lower. Because now you've found purpose and you have pride in your job.
And so so efficacy, like the idea of self-efficacy is almost that agency that's executed properly.
Yeah, I am making a difference and I'm effective in my job.
Yeah.
If you can get those things down, it's still gonna be a hard day, and you're gonna be tired, and you're gonna go home and maybe just want to have that.
You still need that block 4 coffee from your
exactly.
in the corner.
You know, you might be begging that somebody comes by with a Starbucks for you, right?
Yeah.
Those days are gonna happen. But if you feel like you're effective and you're being effective, then your time at work is gonna be much more pleasurable.
Yeah.
Right, and now you have more of a purpose for your job.
Yeah.
There's other factors that may cause burnout. I get that. Things you cannot control.
Yes.
But if you have teacher efficacy and you feel effective in your job, and you are effective in your job, you will not be burned out. Stats show as often, because you'll be burned out sometimes, as somebody who feels the opposite way. If you go to work every day and you're not feeling effective, you don't know what to do, you don't know where to grow, don't know how to grow, haven't been given direction on how to grow. Yeah. And it's the same thing every day. You have the same struggles day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. You will burn out. Yeah. Right? If you are struggling, but you're showing improvement, hey, I'm getting better. Yeah. I'm getting more. I might not be where I want to be right now, but I'm getting more effective.
Like you're kind of seeing a path.
There's hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And you're still going to be tired, but you're going to have less chance of burnout. So work-life balance is not about scheduling time. You have to prioritize things. Yes. Right? The other side is I don't expect anybody to stay to work till 8 o'clock every night, or 7 o'clock every night or whatever it is, sacrifice their home life. Yeah. That's also very important. And by home life, I don't mean family life. Because you can be single and you still prioritize your life outside of school. Yeah. Prioritize means honor it. Yeah. Or you can have a family of 7 kids. Yeah. You still have to honor that as well. But I don't expect anybody to be here like 7 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock at night every day, because that's not healthy either. Yeah. Right? Just make sure you're giving yourself the time to be prepared. So when you come in the next morning, or maybe you're an early morning person, you like to do it the next morning, doesn't matter. So that you can tackle the things you can tackle right away and have room for the popcorn issues that pop up. Yeah. And not burn yourself out.
Popcorn issues, I like that.
Yeah, because you can't control everything.
Yeah. Because I find when it comes to one thing I've been especially surprised in with teaching so far has been, one, the idea, because when I was growing up, it was, don't be a teacher, you'll never get a job. And now it's, don't be a teacher, everyone's quitting like crazy. Yep. And 50% leave in 5 years. And I still find it weird. We had that conversation earlier, but I was like, why is that weird? And I guess one of the things that what is it that's, one, driving people away? And two, what would be the changes necessary to kind of make teaching more attractive in the eyes of people who are in high school applying for those university applications and that stuff?
I think that's a twofold question. Let's go with the first part of why that burnout might be happening. Yeah. We already talked about efficacy, so I'm not going to repeat that again. Yeah. I think sometimes people go into the classroom with this expectation that, like I did my first year, that I'm a teacher, kids are going to love me. Yeah. Or they find themselves in a classroom with a lot of high needs and they never experienced that as a student in the past. Yeah. And so they're kind of flabbergasted. Yeah. Because as much as BED programs prepare you for the instructional part, I do not believe they really prepare you for the, generally speaking, for what the actual rigors of teaching is. So that's part of it. But I also think, everyone's like an old man here.
It's okay.
So I still think of myself as a young teacher, but I'm not anymore. I think we also have a lot of new teachers who think they have to be perfect.
Whoa, that didn't resonate at all.
No, you have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect. And I never expect our teachers in the first 5. I don't expect any teacher to be perfect. Yeah. That's unrealistic. So you got to temper your expectations of yourself. Don't confuse that with, I don't have to give my full effort. Yeah. You still have to give a full effort, but you have to be able to allow to forgive yourself when mistakes happen. Because the job is hard enough. You're going to have your principles, expectations of yourself. You obviously, if you're in evaluation, that's really stressful. Yeah. You're going to have parental expectations on yourself. Mm-hmm. You already have your own anyway on yourself, and students are going to have expectations of you.
Yeah.
My God, I messed up so many times, and not even big mess ups, but I've planned before, and I may have by mistake taught the same thing the previous week.
Yeah.
And kids are like, we already learned this. I'm like, oh yes, we did. And don't try to fake it.
Yes.
Just say, oh, I messed up.
Accept it. Be like, you know what? This is what. If anything, you're almost teaching a valuable lesson too. Of like, you know what? I'm your teacher. We've been here every day, but sometimes I also mess up. Yeah, it's fine. We move on from it.
And the
we
kids
figure
learn
it out
from that, right?
Yeah, they love that.
It's how you respond to messing up, right? That's important. So
now she shouldn't be messing up all the time. But like,
no. Like listen, if every day you have an issue, right? Like,
Yeah.
let's be, as a principal, if I messed up every day and I downtown in my office every single day saying, "Chris, you did this, do this." Well, I have a problem. That'd be a problem.
Yeah.
Right. You're always if you're reflective and you have a growth mindset, sometimes you can be your own worst enemy.
Yeah.
George Decker used to tell me to stop saying sorry. He was my former principal at Beacon Hill. I always said sorry for everything. I now give that same information to my staff. Don't have to say sorry all the time. Just breathe. Yeah. You know, if you made a mistake, if you did something on purpose, just to be evil, okay, say sorry.
Yeah.
But if you made a mistake and you had best intentions and you can reflect on it, then we're good. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, if you do it 4 or 5 more times, we have an issue. But just learn to forgive. That's the first thing. Learn to forgive yourself. Yeah. Second, if you're a new teacher and you're trying to avoid the burnout, use your colleagues.
Yeah.
Does not mean you have to copy everything they do. But teaching, in the best sense of it, sometimes, is about beg, borrowing, and stealing. What I mean by that is, you know, if you see a lesson that you're in your prep and you walk by a science classroom, you teach science, you see them doing something absolutely amazing. Don't just sit there and go, I wish I could do that. Go ask the teacher.
Yes, get it.
Yeah. What are you doing? How'd you do that? Yeah. Please let me know.
Yeah.
Right? Or if somebody you're doing a novel study on The Giver,
yeah.
You know, well, that novel's been taught 400 times.
Yeah.
Right? 400.
Yeah.
Thousands of times.
Yeah.
Okay, so why would you create a unit plan all from scratch? Right? Talk to your colleagues. Do they have a plan they're willing to share with you?
I know, because I will say, coming in my first year, the Google Drive, I don't understand how people did it before. Because the Google Drive we had most of our major assessments. Now, if anything, it kind of gave, so like all the tests were pretty much prepared.
Yeah.
All the assessments were like in unit 1, 2, 3 folders. There was study guides made. So I would say, if anything, it actually kind of allowed for a certain degree of creativity in the first year.
Right, because you weren't playing for those things. And the assessments should be standardized across your grades in one school. I'm not a proponent of standardized testing, but the assessments should be fair and balanced.
Yeah.
But then you have the creativity to instruct the way you would like.
Yeah.
So if you gave me a unit plan on a novel study, Dragon in the Clouds, when I used to teach back in the day, I would look at it, use a foundation, and then make my own based upon yours perhaps and tweaking.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be sitting there from scratch. I wouldn't expect somebody to come in and say make bread and not give them the recipe before how bread was made.
Yeah.
Right?
Or maybe you add a little something extra in there when you make yours. You know what I mean? Or you change
exactly.
one.
Yeah, maybe you bake snow, you put a little twist on it. You just don't follow the recipe maybe I do because I don't know how to cook.
Yeah.
But
you have to personalize it to a certain degree.
Right.
Yeah.
So don't be so hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Beg, borrow.
Yeah.
Steal's a funny way to say it, right? But like steal, you see somebody who does an awesome job.
Yeah.
And you say, that's a great classroom routine.
Yeah.
I'm going to steal that. That's how we say it, right? You don't have to ask permission to borrow a classroom routine.
No. Yeah.
So forgive yourself, beg, borrow, and steal. And plan yourself out so that you can actually breathe and have harmony.
Like if you have an evening where something comes up unexpected, you don't have to worry about like, I got to get up at 3 tomorrow morning to plan for this day. It's like you have some room to
because life happens.
Yeah. And so, and I guess to your point, like my mom is like, she flies in a couple hours. Mm-hmm. So she's here this week. Mm-hmm. And so I'm thinking, okay, like I spent every evening last week pretty much work until 8, 9 o'clock. So it's like I'm preparing for next week.
So I can proactive,
have, like I'm having some evenings free. Like we'll do our essays these days and I'll mark this day. It's like you figure out that kind of week plan.
That's right.
But again, if I just left at 4 o'clock every day, I wouldn't have that degree of harmony of like, holy shit, I need to work every evening while my mom's here. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So yeah, and I guess that's like with any job, I
Yep.
guess. Like you're kind of doing
but it's
that, but
hard. But it's easy to
yeah.
get stuck in the reactive mode,
yes.
right? And
Yeah.
you got to be proactive. And
And
it's
I think
hard
that
to learn.
reactive mode is probably what contributes to burnout more than you think.
Yeah, it does.
You're constantly like on edge a little bit.
Because then you're not in control and you have less efficacy.
Yes.
See?
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Mhm.
If you're constantly reactive, you're a constant state of anxiety.
Yeah.
State of anxiety can bring on mental depression.
Yeah.
So
that's not like something light.
And I'm not saying being proactive is a cure to depression. I'm not saying
No.
anything like that at all.
No. But
I'm saying that you're helping yourself. If
it's
you are
tools
more
that you
prepared.
can use to try to mitigate the potential of that happening.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of what you're looking for.
Right.
But I do need to wrap it up. I got one more question for you though.
Yep.
Okay. So I heard this quote one time, and I ask everyone who's been on so far, so I'm glad that you haven't heard it yet. Education is what remains once we forget everything that we learned in school.
Okay.
So for you as a teacher or even a principal, like what is it that you want students to take away from from their time with you that's not just like curriculum related? Like what values do you hope to instill, or what do you hope they take from being with you specifically?
Outside of curriculum,
Yeah.
I want them to learn. Well, that's a big question, but generally speaking, resiliency.
Yeah.
That's
Like
really
grit.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah, the resiliency and the confidence and belief that and not false confidence.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, I was never a fan of the ribbon for everybody who did the soccer tournament, right?
Yeah.
Or that kind of stuff. Because it's false praise.
Mhm.
But confidence and resiliency built upon skill development. I have done this before. I've been coached how to do this. I can do it again.
You've made a change.
Yeah.
And you grow confident in seeing evidence of progress.
Right.
Yeah.
So example would be a kid in high school. I'll use my son as an example. Right. He has some courses this year that are harder than he had in the past.
Mhm.
I am very proud of him right now.
Mhm.
And he's kind of confused why I'm proud of him. But I told him I'm proud of him
Mhm.
because he's not sitting there wishing for the marks to get better. He's legitimately busting his butt to study to get better.
Yeah.
I want a kid to leave Grudo at school knowing, hey, I faced some challenges in the past and I overcame them. So when I go to grade 7, 8, or 9 at comp, or wherever I go, or Merck or McTavish, when I get to grade 10 and I don't get a concept, I know how to make the steps to get that concept. So resilience,
Mhm.
right? And kindness. Resilience and kindness.
Yeah.
That's, I think the world's lost a little bit of resilience, and I know the world's lost a lot of kindness. And if our little kids leave knowing that they're loved,
Yeah.
that we instilled kindness in them, and we give them the skills to be resilient outside of the curriculum,
Yeah.
then I'm a very happy principal.
Beautiful. Thank you, man.
All right.
Appreciate it. Hey everyone, thank you all for tuning in. Really do appreciate it. Just wanted to say again, if there are any issues with professional conduct and or you would like to share your own story, experience, or have something you would like to contribute to the show, please do not hesitate to reach out at lucasrdclark97@gmail.com or send a direct message on Instagram to @MrClarkAfterDark. Hope you all enjoyed, potentially found something of use, and of course, please do not forget to subscribe. See you guys all next time. Unless you're scared.